regarding the need for complete security in this matter. More specifically, your opposition to the cover story, created to give the impression there's an epidemic at the base. Many of you are troubled by the concern and anxiety this story of an epidemic might cause to your relatives and friends on Earth. I found this cover story personally embarrassing myself. However, I accept the need for absolute secrecy in this.
Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey has always been weaved in to 9/11, and we'll go over those incredible synchronicities a little bit later. You're all familiar with them, but it's so impossible. It's worth going over one more time. Just to explain what's happening here, where the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey seems to now tie not just 9/11 in, but what's happening right now. So on the moon base, no, thank you to Steve, who sent me the transcript from 2001. And I went, you've got to be kidding me. And then I found these clips. So thank you to Steve. What's happening here is they're on the moon base, and the monolith, if you haven't seen the movie, I'll fill you in. The monolith, a small version of it, has been discovered on the moon. And Dr. Floyd here, this is Dr. Floyd also, if you've seen Roy Schneider in 2010, same character, says, we've cooked up a cover story. You can't go home to your families on Earth because there's an epidemic here on the moon base, and we're not proud of it. We've cooked up this cover story. Says it twice, epidemic twice, says cover story, or at least story 3 times. We're not proud of it, but you have to understand there's a need for absolute secrecy. So you can't go home, everybody's stuck here, locked down because of the epidemic that doesn't really exist on the moon base. So we're like, here, okay, now 2001 is tying in the current situation. Incredible. It really is incredible. And it gets one thinking, maybe we'll talk about it at the end, this presentation of the bug that's going around, it's a cover story for something else. Of course, everybody's screaming at me that the first knee-jerk reaction is 5G, and that has merit talking about that, but it usually it's far more the depth of it is far more deeper than we first realize. Most things aren't even a double conspiracy, they're a triple conspiracy. Not just because they get off on a triple conspiracy, because the triple conspiracy, in the way it's presented like that, is needed for them to weave reality the way they want it weaved, to make the perverted quilt the way they want to make the perverted quilt. It takes a triple conspiracy for then the masses to absorb all the information and all the directives given by the minions. The minions influence the minions, Lady Gaga and the news anchor, and Bill Gates, and the minion level influences the masses. That's us, and we reflect back out the perverted quilt that they're sewing. So let's get into this weird shit. When it comes to linking the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey 1968 with the 9/11 event, there are no coincidences. So look at that coincidence. It forms a monolith on the water, the shadow coming through the Twin Towers at a certain time of day and a certain time of year. No, there are no coincidences. I'd be very curious to know what time of year this was. There are no coincidences. It's all by design. And a friend of the channel said, well, Matt, last time, how come you didn't talk about the cross? Okay, there's a cross reflection in the light, but is that what the Rockefellers were going for? The cross? Now I'm here to analyze what the Rockefellers were going for as a minion for the master reality. If there seems to be a cross via the way this picture's taken, via the sun, that's nice, but that's not what the Rockefellers were going for. I don't think. Maybe, but I don't think so. I think the monolith here is more important in this picture, so we'll focus on that, and that's what this video is about. But the incredible, what are the chances? You tell your friends and neighbors, what are the chances the closest building left standing, basically untouched after the destruction on 9/12, was the monolith from 2001: A Space Odyssey. The monolith, the closest building left standing, basically untouched by the destruction, was the monolith. The Millennium Hilton was designed to be the monolith. It's not a coincidence. The Millennium Hilton was designed per its its looks, its the black color, its proportions to be the monolith. So, of course, well, what a coincidence that is. No, it's not. When it was built, they knew this whole event would go down, every bit of it. Of course, there's no coincidences. Just like back to the movie, I think this is the space station, not the moon base. There is a place for people to stay. We had the Millennium Hilton there at Ground Zero. Oh, we have the Hilton here in 2001. Oh, what a coincidence. No coincidences. No coincidences. Then we have George Bush, 1968, I guess, graduate with Kerry Skull and Bones. And then it's all 1968 based here. The 911 call center, 1968. 911 is joke in your town. Why did they put the emergency call center in that late when the UK had it 30, 40 years earlier? Probably to peg it to 1968, to tie in the 911. 1968, when they broke ground, the Rockefeller brothers on the Twin Towers. Of course, do the math. What number do you think 2001 minus 1968 is? If you're listening and not watching, I'll give you 3 guesses. You're only going to need one. 33. And then the movie title itself codes in the date of the attack. Quote attack. 2001, A Space Odyssey, with the monolith left standing at the Ground Zero site. Really? I mean, it is incredible. The way people are reacting to this CV thing, when you tell people about these coincidences, they pull scripts up to explain it all away. It's incredible. Write all these coincidences down between the monolith and 9/11 and try to talk to somebody about it. And don't get upset when they don't see it. Just marvel at the scripts they'll run to explain it away. 2001: A Space Odyssey codes the date of the event. Really? 1968, Kubrick releases film. It's twofold to prep for the 1969 Apollo bullcrap that would come the year later. 911 is joke in y'all town. And then, okay, let's just move off it. Arthur C. Clarke signaled to initiates that 2001 would serve as the climax entry point for the epoch of human alchemy, as 2001, not 2000, is the actual year 1 of the new millennium. I don't know where I got this quote, but I never got rid of it. Oh my gosh, look what's here. I mean, first off, Arthur C. Clarke would say, oh, he wrote the book 2001: A Space Odyssey. Well, yes and no. You make almost every movie, there was a book first or a book 10 years before the movie. The book was written like during the movie filming, but as the movie was being filmed. The movie came first, and they kind of came out at the same time. So Kubrick and the Minions planned 2001: A Space Odyssey, and they brought in Arthur C. Clarke, and they said, you write this book, which will be very, very similar, which would be a little bit different, as we're doing the movie. They were done together, and there are slight differences. And I think these slight differences, there's a lot of truth if you examine the Arthur C. Clarke book. In one, they use Saturn in one regard instead of Jupiter. Maybe not, maybe I think they still use Jupiter, but there was a point where Saturn is mentioned where the movie would mention Jupiter. And it's just very strange. Very, very strange why they brought Arthur C. Clarke in to do this. And I'm sure if you really want to look at it the way like Mike looks at the memoirs of Billy Shears, if you want to study the Arthur C. Clarke book and then you want to spend hundreds of hours comparing the differences between the book and the movie, there's probably a lot of truth there, but we're smack in the middle of next 9/11. I don't think anybody has time to do that. At some point I will look at 2001: A Space Odyssey more closely. But a lot of people do say that no, 2000 didn't start the new millennium. 2001 started the new millennium, and there's probably more evidence that the first year you have to tick 2001 to start the new millennium, where the millennium was celebrated on 2000. And then if that's the case, I would say that per whatever calendar they're using, that probably 9/11 was the start of their new celestial year, or however they do it. If you're going to say 2001 is the start of the new year, there's no coincidence that the 9/11 event would happen at that time. Then why? I'm gonna probably say 9/11 is probably the first day of the year for them. I don't know. That was ushering in the new millennium, and there's a lot that came out of it, including, you know, the potential of moving the entire reality into a sidebar reality of some kind. I don't take any of that big thinking off the table, guys. I'll see you later.